Hey folks, welcome to my second video. Let's take a look at herd immunity today. If you're wondering why is everybody talking about herd immunity these days, well, this is why.
Yeah, I mean, that herd immunity, I know you talked about yesterday when you were appearing with the Prime Minister. In terms of building up a herd immunity within the UK, what sort of percentage of people need to have contracted the virus?
Probably about 60% or so.
60%?
60% is the sort of figure you need to get herd immunity.
I mean, even with that, even looking at the sort of the best case scenario, I know we were talking last week and you were saying, half of 1% to 1% fatality in something like this, that's an awful lot of people dying in this country.
Well, I mean, of course, we do face the prospect of, as the Prime Minister said yesterday, of an increasing number of people dying. That is a real prospect. This is a nasty disease.
Well, before we get back to UK's strategy against COVID-19, let's talk about what is herd immunity. When coronavirus enters the body of a not immunized healthy individual for the first time, because we don't have immunity against this novel virus, it'll infect our lung and undergoes rapid replication, and this individual will become sick and also contagious. When he speaks, coughs, or sneezes, other people around him have a very high chance to get the virus and become sick and contagious as well, and this newly infected individual can then pass on this virus to more people. But if this sick individual is surrounded by people that is already immunized against COVID-19, then the chain of infection will be interrupted because virus will be eliminated in the immunized individual. If we use a tree map to look at this chain of infection, one sick individual can pass COVID-19 to a couple individuals, and those individuals can pass the disease to a couple more individuals, and this tree will become bigger and bigger in an increasing speed. And if some of the people that have early contact with the first sick individual is immunized, then he will stop the chain of infection and protect people even they are not immunized. At the population level, if none of the population is immunized, a few infected individual can quickly pass the disease to most of the population. But if most of the population is already immunized against COVID-19, which means the population has established herd immunity against this nasty disease, then the spread of the disease will be contained. Those who get sick will either recover and become immunized, or die if they are not lucky. And this novel coronavirus is possible to be completely eliminated in the population in such a way. In fact, this is how we eradicated smallpox back in the 80s, which is through the vaccination on the majority of the population. Now, let's take a look at UK's strategy against COVID-19. UK made a plan consists of 4 different phases in fighting against COVID-19. Phase 1 is containment, which involves tracing and monitoring early cases to avoid the spread of the disease. When that doesn't work, then they'll go to Phase 2, the delay phase, which is to slow the spread of the disease. When Phase 2 failed, then they will go to Phase 3, which is research. At this phase, they will focus on finding new diagnostic tests, drugs, and vaccines to reduce the impact of COVID-19. I'm not sure why they want to wait until Phase 2 failed. I mean, why can't they focus on research now? But anyway, Phase 4 is shit hit the, hey, who did this? Well, you know what? On my second thought, I think this is actually quite accurate, so I'm just gonna leave it like this. A few days ago, the UK government declared Phase 1 is over. They think the situation has already gone out of control and there's no point to containing the disease anymore. Yes, they officially gave up efforts containing the spread of COVID-19. They know most people will get infected. They're not even trying to stop it. They just let it happen. Actually, they want it to happen. They want at least 60% of the population get infected so that herd immunity can be established. So, if you live in UK and you believe in God, you better start praying that you and your loved ones will not get infected. Or if you do get infected, you will be one of the mild cases. If you don't believe in God, then you don't need to do anything. Just let evolution do its work. If you get picked, you get picked. If you didn't, congratulations! You now get the chance to produce more offsprings to pass on your superior genetic materials. But what really pisses me off is that they're making it sound like it is their great achievement if the herd immunity is eventually established. The thing is, if they're ditching Phase 1, if they're no longer trying to contain the disease, then herd immunity is inevitable. It is the only outcome. They don't need to do anything. We call the eradication of smallpox a great victory of humankind, because that herd immunity is achieved by giving people vaccine that prevents smallpox, not the viruses that cause smallpox. But UK's approach is to use the infectious virus itself to establish herd immunity. If people use the same approach on smallpox, 30% of world population would die. People would call it a tragedy in human history, not a victory. But I have to be honest and mention that the UK government are not planning to do nothing in phase 2. They are going to do something. They call it delaying, not stopping the spread of the disease. They want whoever got the symptoms, even the mildest kind, to stay home and self-isolate for 7 days. After that, you are free to go out and enjoy your normal life while passing COVID-19 to people around you. In fact, the government wants you to go out and spread the disease. They're counting on you and others like you to build the herd immunity. The logic behind the delay strategy is so-called flattening the curve. I will use a clip from NBC News to show you what those people are thinking.
Officials agree that we are past the point of containment. We're not stopping this thing, and instead we're into mitigation. And one of the primary concepts there is what's called flattening the curve. Even if the same number of people get the disease, it's better that that happen over a prolonged period than all at once. Because if you and I and everyone we know get it right now, that's going to create a peak of infection that's going to crash our healthcare system. If instead we have a long, flat curve of new infections, that's something that hospitals can deal with far more easily.
Okay, we get it. They're trying to reduce the peak of transmission of COVID-19 so that they will not have tens of thousands of infected people rushing into hospital at the same time. It actually makes sense. If daily number of new cases emerge at a rate that does not exceed the capacity of UK's healthcare system, then it means all of the patients will get adequate medical treatment. This delay strategy can and will save lives, even if the same number of people will get infected. But does anyone notice something is not right on the curve they show the public? By the way, Sir Patrick Vallance used a very similar curve on the press conference. So what is wrong with this curve? It sure looks nice. It is telling us with visual language that the delay strategy, the flattening the curve concept, will work. I mean, look at those curves. It is not difficult at all to pick which one's better. But let me tell you, this curve is faked. There's no way it is calculated and drafted using a carefully constructed and validated mathematical model. Its whole purpose is to deceive the public. You see, if the y-axis or the vertical axis is the daily number of cases, and the x-axis or the horizontal axis is time period, then the size of the area surrounded by the bell-shaped curve in the horizontal axis is the total number of people that have COVID-19. In other words, the size of the red area we see in the picture, and plus the red area which is hiding behind the black area that we have to imagine. I added a dotted line to help with that. It represents the total number of people that have COVID-19 when the delay strategy is not deployed. And the size of the black area represents the total number of COVID-19 patients after the delay strategy is deployed. We know the main concept of flattening the curve is that it is not likely to reduce the total number of COVID-19 patients, which means in the picture the size of the red area should be the same with the size of the black area. But is that what they're showing us? No. They're showing us the black area is way smaller than the red area, which means their delay strategy will significantly reduce the number of people infected. At the same time, if we look at the dotted line, they're also showing us the time span of the infection with and without the delay strategy is somewhat similar. That's not right. So what is the real curve? I actually don't know. I don't have the data they have. Even if I have those data, I am not capable to calculate the curve. But we don't need those data to make something similar, because the concept is simple. The concept is flattening the curve, even same amount of people will get infected, which means the real curve will be something like this. Notice the difference? The red area has about the same size as the black area. Yes, we've flattened the curves, but also significantly increased the time span of the disease. If without a delay strategy, the disease could be over in months, then when we delayed it, we will probably be dealing with it for over a year. Also, how would they know the delay strategy will reduce the peak to just under the healthcare system capacity? Isn't it possible that the delayed peak still exceeds the capacity? They seem so confident and optimistic. It almost feels like they never consider other possibilities. With that being said, I have to admit that the delay strategy will save more lives, but that is to compare if we're not flattening the curve. But why do we have to compare to that? Why do we assume there's only two options? If we didn't give up phase 1, the containment phase, maybe the curve will look like this. If you are asked to pick the best curve out of these 3 curves, which one will you pick now? It is too late to argue if UK should abandon phase 1 or not. They already did. They're now officially in phase 2. Will the delay strategy work? Well, if the purpose is to achieve herd immunity, then yes, it will work, but at the cost of hundreds of thousands of lives. But if the goal they want to achieve is to save as many lives as they can, then they've already failed. They don't want to even try. But no matter what will happen, it is their decision to make, and they will have to face the consequence by themselves, right? Wait a minute. So Patrick Vallon said by using his strategy, people at UK will eventually coexist with COVID-19. This novel coronavirus will likely to come back each year, just like flu. And honestly, I don't think it is possible for other countries to keep COVID-19 out forever. It will eventually become pandemic worldwide, just like flu. Then all the money, the labor, all the resources other countries spent on locking down cities, states, and provinces, even entire country, all the efforts and sacrifices their citizens made trying to contain the virus are wasted. UK is making other countries look like fools. He is bringing everybody down with him. Whew. Well, I admit I may have overreacted a bit back there. Maybe UK is doing the right thing. Maybe no matter what we do, herd immunity is inevitable. But no one will know the answer for sure because we can't repeat history. We can't rewind time and go back a few months to try something else. And that's how politicians got away with their mistakes every time. Years from now, when someone asks Sir Patrick Vallon if he still thinks he offered the right suggestion to the UK government, he will say yes, because no one can prove him wrong. Another reason he can easily make suggestions like herd immunity is that he represents the powerful and the rich. He's one of them himself. We are experiencing a global crisis, and like all the crises we had before, the ones that will suffer the most are the poor and the weak. We now know the elders face the most threat from COVID-19, but not all the elders, only the ones that are poor. No, we don't have to worry about Tom Hanks. He'll be fine, most likely. The medical resources he can get will help him go through this nasty shit. But your Uncle Bob? He might not be that lucky. You may want to call him and say you love him before it's too late. But if one day people see those politicians' true colors and are not buying their excuses, what will those politicians do? Well, there's always China to blame. Works every time.